sort of thing.
You can't
There's
put
no restrictions anymore. You don't have to apply or anything. You just use your RSS feed.
I thought you were saying you can't put them on Spotify. And I was like, man, that's definitely not true.
That's definitely not true. Hey, welcome to episode 3 of Behind the Ads. I am Hugh Reese. This is Exposed Media, and we are bringing you this to show you what's going on in our world and behind the agency for our clients and what's working and what's not working this week. So yeah, we were just talking about the podcast and our syndication, global domination ideas. So currently you can get this on the website. Olivia, she's muted because she doesn't want to speak to anyone, but it's on a website called behindtheads.co. And we are trying to get this out on other channels. So Christy is going to do that. She's going to take that and run with it. So everyone, how was our week? Did we have a good week this week?
Yeah,
Pretty good week.
Oh, geez, you guys are really exciting.
We're going to record this at the start of the week, so we're like high on energy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's been a great week.
Like the COVID craziness is dropping off a little bit.
Yes, we are lucky here in Australia where things are starting to get relaxed. Although I still notice that we are at home, that you people are still at home. I'm in the office, so it's great to be in here with no one around. Anyway, let's kick it all off. We're going to talk about what's working across Facebook and Google this week with our clients, and I think we're going to start with Christy today. Christy, you had a revelation, and it was something to do with this podcast last episode.
Well, I mean, it's actually really cool. We don't often get to catch up, I think, to be able to exchange ideas. And last week, Georgia was talking about how she was using her middle of funnel remarketing stack business to be able to kind of reinvigorate some creative and get some social proof and all this kind of stuff. And what that did was that triggered for me that I've got a bunch of accounts at the moment that were desperate to kind of get leads coming in and all these kinds of things. So I took George's idea and I kind of modified it for lead gen and just kind of smushed a whole bunch of audiences, video views, like everything I possibly could, and kind of smushed it all into one big fat audience. And now we're kind of able to get out to those people who had seen our stuff but were cold or not kind of engaging with us, and we're kind of getting more new leads coming in from those kind of audiences. So it was really just taking kind of what we had and recycling it and making sure the things, but it was an idea that was triggered by Georgia, who's there but might be there, might be there. I don't know. So it was triggered by Georgia's idea, and it just meant that I was able to kind of again squeeze a little more juice out of my tiny audiences that I have for lead gen here in Australia. So
that's amazing.
Fun. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, it's something that I've seen as well at top of funnel. We often bundle our best audiences and create like super bundles, which is performing really well at the moment. So yeah, I like that. Good job, everyone.
Yeah. So, and it was just really nice because again, it wasn't something, it wasn't kind of on my radar until Georgia pointed it out. So, that's what I'm, even just kind of being in these conversations, it's really good for me. So everyone else can stop listening now because I'm getting heaps out of it.
That's some amazing feedback. So for everyone who's watching, they're hopefully getting some good tips out of this, which is cool. That's great to hear, Christy. That sort of also brings me into, look, the phone's ringing, but no one's here to get the phone. We're on a podcast. Can't you hear us? So that brings me on to Josh. You had something about audience sizes, mate?
Yeah, well, I mean, almost what you touched on there with bundling audiences together to create those super audiences. Something that I've been able to do this week for one of my clients, where we started to see return dropping, CPMs rising, just this kind of the usual sort of warning signs that something wasn't quite right. Happened around the Facebook outage earlier in the week, which was a little bit frustrating. But what we were able to do is we were previously running a few different best performing audiences together, bundled them up, pulled out the 4 of our best performing ads, duped those 4 bundles out, and they're now performing at kind of double what those audiences were running separately.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think it's just kind of, while there's kind of situations where you should be kind of separating your audiences out, getting kind of small, tight audiences, things like where we run some sort of testing with smaller budgets with best performing creative, that's great. But when you're ready to scale and kind of put some big money behind it, those big audiences, and just kind of stepping out of Facebook's way and letting the algo do its job.
Oh,
Yeah, I know.
Thing. Look out.
I feel like something to be said. Sorry, Hugh.
You're right.
Yeah, taking like a best performing audience that maybe is slowed down for no reason, and just duplicating it and creating a new campaign with that like same audience, or bundling them up. Yeah. And I've done that for a few clients, and it just picks back up again. It just kind of needs to reset that learning, or maybe get rid of some negative learning it might have had.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we kind of, or that isn't talked about a lot, is like bad learning.
Yeah.
That if your campaign hasn't been performing for a while, then that's just learning how to not perform well. If it's not getting purchases for X amount of days or whatever you're optimizing for.
Yeah.
It's not learning anything. It's just sitting there kind of.
For nothing.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you touched on something that I think's probably important to cover on this week as well, is that we're starting to see costs start to climb back up. So obviously in the last 8 weeks, we've had a pretty good run in the Facebook world where not a lot of competition on the platform and things have been pretty cheap. But lately, especially in a few of the US-based clients, we're seeing the CPMs rising and our auction costs going up. So just keep that in mind if you're out there in the Facebook world. Make sure you're keeping a track on that. So yeah, it's cool. Who should we go to next? With maybe Georgia? I'll lead straight into it. What's going on in your world, Georgia? What's happened this week?
Well, I guess it's not so much a trend that I'm seeing at the moment, but more of just a general tip. I feel like as businesses are opening back up again, warehouses are opening back up again, people would be having collections coming out that maybe were supposed to be coming out a month or two ago, and kind of thinking, how can businesses and ad managers or media buyers like us get the best results from these new collections when they launch, as it's going to get more and more competitive as more people start running ads again. And I thought we could probably all bounce off each other a little bit here, but it's just been on my mind because a few of my clients have some collections launching in the next couple of weeks. Just kind of what you can do to get yourself in front of your customers and the people who've engaged with you recently as best as you can. So doing things like, I would say if you have a launch coming up in the next couple of weeks, I would start running a lead form campaign, which is Christy's specialty, to get people in, signing up if they're interested to hear when it drops, and then they can link up to your email list. And then I'd also get an email flow ready so that the day or two before the collection launches, you've got those emails going out. Just little things like that I think a lot of businesses don't do, but really make a massive difference when your ads launch.
Yeah, definitely. I've noticed a lot, kind of even as we've done product launches over the last kind of year, 2 years, that the times we do it with a lead gen campaign beforehand,
build the hype,
they far outperform anything else that we do, especially for like established, if you've got an established customer base,
yeah,
that's great. Your product launch is probably going to do well. But for guys that are kind of starting out or maybe don't have as big a customer base, or they're really trying to expand, we're doing a campaign at the moment where we know we've got a product launch in, I think, maybe a month or two, but the details aren't finalized. All we're doing is letting people know that something is coming, sign up. We're getting leads for kind of 50, 60 cents at top of funnel. And that's just building the email list for further down the track. Even if this product launch doesn't happen or it gets pushed back another month, this campaign is just bringing us in email lists of interested people.
And what's the stat, like 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your existing customers. So if you think
Yeah.
about that, you really want to leverage that as much as you possibly can,
Yeah.
especially after the last few months. And I'm sure, I mean, some businesses have done really well, but some have had really rough months. So if you've got a collection coming up, you really are probably relying on that launch going well.
Yeah.
Hey, we're like a quick one. I just want to touch on getting leads. So, is it better to drive them to a landing page where they can put their name and email list, or use Messenger bot? What's the best thing people do? Christy's jumping this one.
Yeah,
Messenger. No.
Why they Messenger?
I love Messenger bots. I'm so biased on this, it may not be the best answer, but I love Messenger bots for a lot of reasons. If you get someone in the platform, it's a one-to-one conversation. So it's literally like you're talking to them. People are much, much more likely to give you far more detailed personal information over Messenger than any other platform in the world, which is great and terrible. It's creepy, but you also can create some really good audiences. You can retarget people from Messenger. You can use a platform like ManyChat to send them emails and SMS. Like, there's so much like bang for buck that you get from Messenger. I'm a huge fan of Messenger.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a really, really fun platform.
Yeah, I think the only thing for that is if you're gonna pick one, and in terms of ease of use and kind of effectiveness, I think email's probably still, if you're not doing either and you need to pick one, email's probably the one that's gonna do well. But I've seen Messenger just absolutely kill it for people before, but it requires a bit more effort, I think, and a bit more planning and strategy than a kind of a standard email campaign.
Yeah.
So if you've got the resources to do it, Messenger definitely.
Yeah, that's a good segue. James, does Google have Messenger bots? Oh wait, no, they don't.
What's on Google? But
What's going on with Google this week, mate?
Look, this week I've actually been spending quite a bit of time looking at cross-site tracking. And while I was initially going to talk about that, that idea kind of morphed into a more general chat just about keeping your entire customer journey fairly simple and fairly straightforward. A large part of that kind of came from the fact that we've got a client that we're working with where they're working with a landing page and they're working with a kind of a checkout or a website where they actually engage with the product and actually make the purchase. A fantastic flow, a really good way to make sure you're capturing those people and giving them all the details that they need. But unfortunately comes with the small caveat that means you have to then cross-site track. And that's kind of where that came in. I was thinking a lot about, trying to make sure that people have the smoothest and most consistent experience when coming through your customer journey. Instead of, changing between different URLs, maybe they sign up on one landing page with a URL, they get an EDM, that sends them to another URL. It can be a confusing thing, and it can definitely help or not help, but it can definitely be detrimental to things like attribution, conversion tracking, making sure that you've got your leads being tracked from the right place or that your sales are being tracked at all. So I guess essentially my message this week is basically try and keep things as straightforward as you can without compromising, obviously, the quality of your flow there. And just make sure you're not missing out on those conversions. Make sure you've got all that data coming through and make sure that if your ads are the ones that are killing it, that you know that.
They're working, yeah, that's true. I mean, that also holds true for I suppose any platform. Anytime you put spending money, making sure your customer journey is on point and no holes or no leaks in it, because you're leaving money on the table if you can't actually track the user journey correctly, and then obviously remarket them to give them the right content or the right ad at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not Google specific at all. It definitely applies pretty much advertising wide. And as things like, obviously with the tracking changes happening with browsers, Firefox, I know, has just had a big one recently with Facebook.
Yeah.
I know that, Safari on iPhone has basically shut everything down for the most part by default. With things like that already making life as difficult as it is, adding things like cross-site tracking or, EDMs where URLs are different, all of that just contributes to a problem that we're already trying to fight. So I think it's just critical to try and just step back, make sure it's all, as straightforward as possible and keep it simple.
Yeah, love that. Love it. Well, that's pretty much it for the week, right? We've all done.
That was quick.
It was quick, yeah. Or should I share one thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, say something.
I was waiting for Georgia to prompt me, but she did. Last week she gave
Nice
me,
segue, Georgia.
she gave me shit and gave me hell
I'll
about
let
it.
you off the hook this week.
I love it. I've been playing with accelerated bidding and spending this last week since we had a chat. We had a client that essentially after 6 p.m. at night lose a lot of money on their Facebook ads. So playing with accelerated bidding to try and spend their money as fast as they can to the best possible purchases they can, and it's actually working really well. So we're finding they're spending most of the money by 5 p.m. on their campaigns from the day, and their ROAS is way positive, much more positive than it was previously. So just there's more than one way to run your campaigns and to spend your money profitably. So just keep an eye on that. And if you think that you are losing money, check your stats. Make sure you can. In Facebook, it's pretty easy to do to see your hourly profitability. So check where you're losing your money and really focus on that and try to find a way to fix that for you, and you'll make much more money.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of ideas behind why that was happening for that client? Do you think it was like a demographic based?
Josh, I actually haven't delved into it too much. It's very odd that, because usually we see clients that are essentially making more money at night time, but due to the way customer behavior and customer purchase, it could be the demographic is a lot older, and maybe they're making purchases early in the morning. It could also be an attribution thing where people, even though they actually may be at home, still buying at that time of day, but because they saw their ad in the morning, the actual sale got attributed to the morning numbers rather than nighttime numbers. I don't know. We maybe delve a bit more into it this week and maybe come up with some hypotheses next week on the show. We can talk through it.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you so much, team. It's been always a pleasure to see your faces, and I look forward to maybe seeing you in the office in a couple of weeks. Yay! So cool. That's it for us, guys. Have a good one, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks,
See you later.